Now, one thing that's probably not going to help the MAGA movement's image is the fact that the Epstein files were the subject of a US congressional hearing on Wednesday, with Attorney General Pam Bondi called to give evidence. Bondi is ultimately in charge of the release of the files by the Department of Justice, and she's been criticised by victims and politicians for the way she's handled it. Critics argue that powerful figures are still being protected, given that at least 2.5 million documents are still unreleased, while many of those that are on the internet have been heavily redacted. The department also failed initially to conceal the names of many victims of Epstein's sex trafficking and rape ring, and Congress did not hold back. This was the Democratic Party representative Chuy Garcia.
Attorney General Bondi, glad you finally made it here after hiding for 4 months from this committee. I understand why you're hiding from us.
Chairman?
You're one of the worst attorney generals in our history and an instrument of Donald Trump's lawless authoritarian agenda, and I'm glad the American people are seeing who you are, how you act, and the lack of good values. You weaponize the Department of Justice to target immigrants, working families, and anyone that Trump deems an enemy of the state, all to protect real powerful criminals, including in your administration. My Democratic colleagues have focused on your cover-up of the Epstein files and your passion for protecting pedophiles and child traffickers.
There were other conflicts like this one with Ted Lieu.
There is no evidence that Donald Trump has committed a crime. Everyone knows that. This has been the most transparent presidency. He's the one that asked that those files
I'm reclaiming my time. I got your answer. You said there's no evidence.
Trump asked
Mr. Chairman, please stop the clock.
Stop the clock. The legislation. This is
time
belongs to the gentleman from California.
Okay. I'm going to put up another document from a witness who called the FBI's National Threat Operations Center because I believe you just lied under oath. There is ample evidence in the Epstein file.
Don't you ever accuse me of a crime.
I believe you just lied under oath, and this is on videotape. You said there's no evidence of a crime. I'm showing you. Here is a witness statement who called into the FBI's Threat Operations Center. He drove Donald Trump around in a limo. He overheard what Donald Trump said to Jeffrey on his cell phone. He was so angry, he was going to stop the limo and hurt Donald Trump. And he met a girl who said she was raped by Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein. She later had her head blown off, and officers at the scene said that could not have been suicide. No one at the Department of Justice interviewed this witness. You need to interview this witness immediately. Epstein should rot in hell, so should the men who patronized his operation. And as we say here today, there are over 1,000 sex trafficking victims, and you have not held a single man accountable. Shame on you. If you had any decency, you would resign right after this hearing concludes.
I mean, is it difficult to disagree? Sorry, at this point, the fact that they've not even bothered trying to haul anybody at this point in front of any amount of accountability for featuring in all of these DOJ releases is absolutely crazy. There's huge amounts of documentation now about people who are implicated, at least somewhat, at least for questioning, in terms of their relationship to Jeffrey Epstein, and they've not bothered wanting to get anybody held accountable at all. One of the most striking moments was this one, prompted by Pramila Jayapal.
To the survivors in the room, if you are willing, please stand. And if you are willing, please raise your hands if you have still not been able to meet with this Department of Justice. Please know for the record that every single survivor has raised their hand.
It's despicable. It's an image. There's this great image of all of them holding their hands up with Pam Bondi not even bothering to pay any mind or even look at them at the time. An image that I think will come to haunt the Trump administration and be alongside the image of members of the public, civilians, and their lifeless corpses having been murdered by ICE as representative of the attitude of the Trump administration. Total lack of concern for anyone other than their own. Bondi, for her part, wasn't afraid of taking some very low blows. This was her response to questioning from Democrat Becca Balint.
Also, I want the record to reflect that, with this anti-Semitic culture right now, she voted against a resolution condemning.
Oh,
is
Jewish. I just want to be clear.
Oh,
do you want to go there, Attorney General? Or do you want to go there? Are you serious? Talking about anti-Semitism to a woman who lost her grandfather in the Holocaust?
I reclaim my time.
Really?
I mean, Dahlia, what much can you even say? What can you even say about this kind of interaction and the standard that is being expected of one of the most kind of powerful people in America in terms of Pam Bondi as the head of the DOJ?
The thing to remember about Pam Bondi is that Pam Bondi doesn't care what you think. Pam Bondi doesn't care what I think. She doesn't care what the survivors of Epstein think. She doesn't even really care what voters think. She has one member of the audience that she is performing for, and that is Donald Trump. And we need to remember why Pam Bondi is in the position that she is in. What qualifies her for the position of being Trump's attorney general is the fact that she has got a track record of manipulating the law and manipulating justice systems to protect powerful men, including Donald Trump himself. Not only is this someone who has been a diehard Trump loyalist since 2016, but their relationship actually goes further back than that. When she was Attorney General in Florida, she actually was the primary reason why a lawsuit against Donald Trump's Trump University, the reason that lawsuit got dropped happened after Trump made what turned out to be illegal $25,000 donation to her PAC. We go back again to the fact that she was Attorney General in Florida. She took over as Attorney General from Florida after Alex Acosta. Alex Acosta was Trump's first Labor Secretary, who was well known for designing the sweetheart deal that basically saw Epstein evade federal sex trafficking charges, where he ended up in jail for a year on nothing but procuring sex workers. And he ended up in jail for a year, where he was able to basically leave the jail and conduct business as normal and go as and when he pleased. A sweetheart deal that is basically unprecedented within the justice system. Now, Pam Bondi herself was not responsible for that sweetheart deal, but she followed in Alex Acosta's footsteps as Attorney General of Florida and did nothing to rectify that. It's very difficult for me to believe that Pam Bondi would not have been aware that these charges had been brought up against Epstein, and she would have had access to much of the information that led to this kind of sweetheart deal. Maybe not all of it, and maybe, expecting her to intervene in an investigation that had already been closed might be a little far. But what we can say is that she was mired in a culture of cover-ups and of aiding and protecting the reputations of powerful men. And that is what she is doing right now. Her job in this hearing is not to answer the questions of democratically elected officials who are there to hold her accountable. It's not there to restore some segment of dignity to the survivors who have been failed time and time again, despite showing, now that we know the scale of this operation and the depths and the fact that people lost their lives becoming too close to exposing what was going on, the immense bravery of those women who were young girls when this all happened to them. She is not there to face any of these people. She's not there to face us. She's there to show Donald Trump that she is able to do what he has recruited her to do, which is to divert attention from his implication and the implication of others like him in the networks of power that have been exposed by the Epstein files. And she does that by what? By shouting, by yelling, by making the story, her behavior, by insulting the people that are questioning her, by making the story something other than the complicity of herself and the complicity of the people that she serves in the failure of Epstein's victims. And so when we understand that that is who Pam Bondi's audience is, that's where her bread is buttered and has always been buttered, we can understand a little bit why she has exhibited such, frankly, bizarre behavior during these congressional hearings. And again, my interest is in how do diehard MAGA voters respond to seeing that, given that Epstein and, the idea of this network of power who were involved in sex trafficking children, that was so central and such a motivating factor for many of them to vote for Donald Trump. How do they respond seeing his second-hand woman, his right-hand woman, essentially showing that she is there not to actually answer these questions, despite having these files and having the capacity to do so, but is there to actually protect a man who has been named over and over again in these files as at least someone who is inappropriately related to a man like Epstein, given the fact that it was an open secret, essentially, what he was up to.
I think that we are, as I say, starting to see the MAGA base kind of peel away, especially young men, where the support for Trump is created almost immediately. People who were pretty in tune with the Epstein file discourse because the kind of the podcast sphere that brought these people into the MAGA movement, especially during the last election cycle. And there was a moment, I watched Thomas Massie being interviewed by journalists in the United States, and he claimed this was going to be bigger than Watergate. That was his claim. This will be bigger than Watergate. I think that he's right. And there's a lot of hubris in the Trump administration when a lot of the Pam Bondi's pushback was like, oh, look, the Dow Jones is doing really well. People's retirement savings funds are doing well. Why are you asking about the Epstein files? Just totally deflecting. And something as incredibly serious of a scandal as, a child sex trafficking ring that implicates huge numbers of powerful people with seemingly no ability for the Trump administration to hold any of these people accountable for the crimes that they could potentially have committed. People don't just overlook that. People aren't going to be diverted away from this. And the more and more and more that they try and deflect, as Pam Bondi continually did for 5 hours or something during these congressional hearings, will only serve to detach more of these people who've been sold this huge, long string, this ball of string that they've been following from day one of the kind of Epstein stuff being popular discourse to now, we're pouring over the files from what we've seen that's been released because of the Epstein Files Transparency Act, is causing a lot of these MAGA faithful to lose faith because, as we have seen, Trump's new political term in office has been terrible, and for them specifically too.